there is so much that we can learn from podcasts as hosts and as guests. Today, we have Charisse coming on to talk about her podcasting journey, some things that she's learned as a host, and also about her book that she has, which is all about how to build a better relationship with yourself first before you go into marriage. And then we're also going to be on the lookout for her next book. The reason that I love this conversation with Charisse is because as humans, we are so multifaceted. Her podcast, her entrepreneurial journey, all of it is what defines her, not just the singular thing of being a mom. And I love that we talk about that and more on this episode. So please join me in welcoming Charisse to the podcast. Welcome to Podcasting Unlocked, the show for purpose-driven podcasters. I'm Alesia Galati, founder of Galati Media, and I'm here to share actionable strategies to help you amplify your message and grow your audience. Hello, Charisse. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and a bit about your podcast.
Hello. My name is Charisse Walker, and I kind of am a jack of all trades, which I shouldn't be, but I am. And so about a year ago, decided to start a podcast called the Unbreakable Mompreneurs. And so that is what I do. And I interview women who not necessarily are moms, but they are successful businesswomen. We talk about business, we talk about motherhood, we talk about being a wife, and how you juggle all of it. So I do that. When I'm not doing that, I actually have a TV show called The American Dream TV. And I'm also a realtor and a lender and an author of a book. So yeah, do a lot of things.
Yes, very busy. I love it. And I love the premise of your show, not just because I was on your show, but because there's a lot of, and maybe this is just societally, and hopefully we're starting to see this change a little bit, that being a mom is always seen as like the end all be all, where it's like you're a mom, you have no more dreams, you have no more goals. It's just to raise these humans to be decent human beings, right? Like that's really what we're trying to do here. And then you go to work and like even in a corporate job, I know a lot of the time I had to push back as like, I deserve this. Yes, I'm a mom and I still deserve this promotion because my home life, and I had to almost add in that my husband's a stay-at-home parent, that he handles the kids, that home is taken care of. That's not something that you have to worry about with me. But my male counterparts never really had to like make those reasonings for their promotions or their ability to work or travel for their job. And so, yeah, being a mom feels like such a singular focus in our media as like, that's all you're allowed to do, which is stupid. And so I love that you have this like duality of being a mom and being an entrepreneur and having that multifacetedness. I'm curious, what is the range of entrepreneurs that you've interviewed with like certain jobs that they've had or certain, not careers, but like what they do as entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I've been kind of starstruck sometimes because I don't ever know who the person is sometimes because we use the same way to get guests. And so sometimes like you do some research, but you don't really know all of it until later. And so I've had a lady her character is Pearl on General Hospital. So I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, right? And then I've had this other lady who her company got bought out by Bill Gates, and she received a letter from the president of the United States and that wanted her to do stuff. And so the range is like this woman in Sweden that decided to say, let's talk about charisma, and that was, or and a lady that's in her 80s that lives down in, I think it was Costa Rica or something. So it is a broad range. And then there's another one who they had several kids and they homeschool them, to divorced women, to single moms. I mean, it is crazy, the range that I've had on my show. It's been a huge blessing.
That's awesome. I'm curious too how it's impacted how you show up in your varying adventures that you have.
Yeah. No, that's a good question too, because sometimes you get on and the person rambles and rambles and they talk like this and they don't ever smile and you're just like, I'm going to fall asleep, right? I don't mean to be rude, but I'm like, I got to wake myself up. To the other person that's they're like, their arms are flailing and they're just going like that. And I think sometimes, because I'm one of those that mirrors people's energy a lot. And so if they're like that, I tend to go like that. If they're not, then I won't. And so I think the range for me and how I show up, definitely I have to be prepared and I have to know who they are and I'm ready with the questions that I want to ask. But in terms of how I show up, sometimes the energy fluctuates because of my guest. And I try not to. I try to bring them back up, but sometimes when they just ramble like I am right now, it doesn't end.
You're not rambling. It's good. I love that though, because I mean, I've had experiences for sure, and I've shared this on the show before, but for anyone new, I was on a show where I had a guest that every time I started talking, she looked down at her phone.
Oh, yeah.
That was really rough. It was really difficult.
Like, because there are cameras over here and
Oh,
you're like, "Can you look at me, please?"
yes. I've seen that too. It's like, just move it so that we can kind of look at each other a little
Right.
bit. Oh, it's so good. And then I had another person where every time that I was talking, and I get it. I probably have ADHD. I think he did, and he leaned back in his chair, and he's swinging back and forth, and he's up there I go, like, shaking my whole camera system here for those who aren't looking at me,
Mhm.
but, like, it's
Mhm.
literally as simple as getting some type of fidget thing. Sometimes I'll have my chapstick in my hand, and then it falls, and I'm like, "Don't look." Nothing happened, right? Like, you just gotta get something that's gonna help you be present
Mhm.
in these conversations, and I'm at the point where I have had hundreds of interviews, whether it's me on someone's show or on my own show. And it is very interesting the variety that you get from being a host. What is something that, in your experience, has been something that you love about being a podcaster?
Oh, see, I absolutely love and I actually considered, do I stop? Because of my life in the real world.
Yeah.
There's so much and I'm so busy. And I wrote down like, okay, what do I not? Because this takes a lot of time, right? You're interviewing multiple guests a week and then you edit it if you do that and then creating all that stuff. So what I love is meeting new people and everybody has a story. And I would never, ever be able to have these conversations with people just on the street. Like, they're not gonna open up, they're not gonna talk about things. And I love people's stories, like, my degree's in sociology. And so being able to meet people and see their perspective and I don't know what it is that day, but I take something away every single time of what I could learn, what I could use. Maybe I'm struggling with something for today. Like, today I interviewed somebody and I'm like, "Oh, I needed that," right? And
Mm.
so it's making a difference in their lives, them making a difference in my life and the interaction. I feel like I have new best friends every single week, right?
Yes.
So I love that.
Yeah, I have to agree. Something that helps me because I have social anxiety, and so having a one-on-one is 10 times easier for me than being in a group of people trying to network, and I feel like with a 30-minute conversation or 20-minute conversation,
Mhm.
we can get so much deeper and get to know each other, especially when it's a podcast swap. Because 'cause I've been on their show, now they're on my show or vice versa. And I think that it just allows you to connect deeper with that person. I just interviewed someone yesterday and I had been on his show and then he was on mine. And I was at the end, I'm like, tell me again what you do because I knew we had talked about it and I said I was going to like keep him
Mhm.
in mind or connect him with someone. And I was like, I need to let me make a note again.
Yeah.
Like bringing people back top of mind to make those connections, right? Because I feel like entrepreneurship can be such a lonely
Yeah.
experience
Mhm.
if we let it. That, a lot of our biz besties tend to be virtual, right? Like, I was trying to explain to my 10 and 7-year-old that I have never met my biz besties in real life, and they were like, "What?
Mhm.
How is that possible?" And then also had to be like, "Be safe on the internet as well." Right? Like, try to give them this balance and this duality here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship is lonely, and
Mhm.
podcasting is a great way to connect with people, to get out there and be able to meet people that, like you said, you maybe never would have been able to meet either, especially if they're in a different country or maybe don't run in the same circles as you.
Well,
That.
And I think that we're like-minded people, right? So I go to a lot of business conferences for real estate. I always talk about my specialties are relationship business and real estate. And so if I go to those conferences, they're like-minded people. They're there, they're spending money, so they're the same type of people. If I go and talk to my, no disrespect, but a brother, a sister, a parent,
Yeah.
they don't have it. Like my mom said one time, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to this convention." She's like, "That's a cult." And I'm like, "No, it's not," And so, but they don't understand. They're not the same people. They don't have a podcast. They don't enjoy that stuff. And so when we're talking with each other, we're like-minded. And so I think that that's why we are able to connect so easily with each other because we know what you're going through. I know the stress. I know, and it might be a different type of industry or different this or that, but it's the same thing that we're doing and we have the same interests. And so it's easy to connect very quickly. In 20 minutes, I feel like I know more about a person than a neighbor that I've lived for 2 years. I don't know their name, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it creates this intimacy too, right? And maybe it's because it's just us here, and then later our listeners are tuning in and almost like they're overhearing a conversation of two people,
mhm.
networking. But yeah, it's always so interesting. And I think I feel one, I'm an oversharer. Tend to
So
be.
am I. So am I. My husband's like, "Why do you say that? Why do you do that? Like, leave me out of it." My sister told me my life, if I ever like this book right here, "If you mention one thing about me, I will I won't say what she said, but I'm like, "Okay." So yes, I'm an oversharer too.
As a chronic oversharer, it is easy for me to get on a podcast with someone and
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, yeah, I grew up in a cult." And usually they're like, Record scratch. Wait a minute. What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a whole podcast about that. We don't need to talk about that." And they're like,
Yeah.
"But you dropped it on me." What do you mean?
Go
I want it.
listen. Go listen to the episode, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. Go listen to the podcast. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, it just creates this intimacy. I love it. So tell us a bit about the book. I
Mhm,
can see it on the screen, but for
mhm,
people who are maybe not watching live, what's the title and what can they
mhm.
expect if they get it?
No, thank you for that. I wasn't expecting that. So it's called Flipping the Iceberg, and it's basically it says discovering and celebrating what lies beneath the surface in your relationships. So with an iceberg, 10% above the water, usually 90% below. So it's kind of the same thing with our lives. We have trauma in our lives that we really might not ever know. It's just like an iceberg, and I say it's waiting to sink your relationship. So if you're not healed, so you could self-sabotage a relationship or your relationship could be ruined because of that. So if you can heal yourself of that, then you can think clearly. Because I think a lot of times, like I used to be very codependent, or you could get into an abusive relationship. And so that helps you make healthier decisions. And then once you do that, now you find the person you want to be with. Now, like that's the first half of the book. The second half is now that you've found that person you think you want to spend your life with, let's get to know them and flip their iceberg. And so it's a series of questions, activities, lessons, stories, because there's a workbook that is attached to it or that you could also get. But it's just how to save marriages basically before you say I do. And my second one I'm working on is after the I do. And so that's really a passion project. And it's actually how I started my podcast as well, because I found myself divorced, never ever thought I would be. And so women who, and I had started a college while I was doing this, right? And so split from my husband at the time. My youngest was 3. I had 4 kids. And I just realized like I killed myself getting that school accredited and doing all these things. And then I show up one day and my boss is in my office and he's like, meet your replacement. And I go, what? And I had stayed like from 8 in the morning all the way around to like 2 o'clock the next day trying to get this school accredited. And right when I did, then they let me go because the CEO's best friend wanted to move back from Florida and he needed a place, and I mean, he needed a job because he wanted to move to Utah. So my job was all of a sudden available. And so I realized at that point that entrepreneurship, like I'll never have to answer to somebody again. And I got into that. And so that's how I got into the podcast. That's how I started my book because of my relationship. And so all of it kind of like it really is related, all of it.
Yeah.
And that's how it all happened. And that's what the book is about.
Oh, that's awesome. Lately, and I don't know if this is just because several of our clients are
Mhm.
midlife women, a lot of the content that I've been listening to on these midlife podcasts, and I'm in my 30s, so I'm not exactly at midlife, I think it's still very relevant
Yeah, I
as I
know.
look forward to my 40s and 50s. So a lot of these conversations have been around relationships and
Mm,
how even though you might have already dealt with some things from your childhood, maybe you went to therapy in your 20s and 30s, or maybe you worked through this and processed it, it can still rear up in a
yeah.
different way
Mhm.
after the fact, and how it's how healing, especially from big T, little t trauma, doesn't matter. Healing
Mhm.
is not a linear journey. It's not like,
No.
okay, and I'm done and we've released it from our bodies. It's like we've released today
Yeah.
feelings and then moving on. I'm excited about your next book though, because as someone who is married and has grown with my spouse, right? I mean, we got together. So I was 21, he was 25, and then got pregnant pretty quickly, ended up getting married and then having our second kid. And he's the person I want to spend my life with.
Hey,
Yay. Right.
I like that.
And yes, I know that in 10 years, our kids are going to be out of the house.
Mm,
And what is that relationship going to look like when there's not that buffer of children there? And how can we cultivate a solid us relationship without kids so that it's not like, well, oh man, what are we going to do now when we get to that point? So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. But even like you mentioned, those things that you need to work on with yourself instead of
mhm.
going into the relationship and being like, well, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. It's like, actually, I feel this way, and here's why I feel this way.
Yeah.
So being able to explain, like, for example, when one of our kids was going to a regular public school, my husband wanted to pull him out early. And I was immediately triggered because as a child,
Mhm.
I was pretty much thrown to the whim of whatever my drug addict mom wanted to do. Oh, we're going to move again for the 20th time. Oh, we're changing things. Things are moving and shifting and adjusting
Mhm.
when I didn't have any control over it. And I didn't want my kid to feel that way. And so when I was able to pause and say, why is this triggering me? Why do I feel mad that he doesn't see this the way that I do?
Mhm.
Then when I was able to say, okay, honey, here's why I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And here's why it feels really gross to me to do that. Like you might be thinking, oh, I want to spend the afternoon with him. Let's go get some ice cream, right? But in my brain, I'm thinking, you're controlling his life in a way that he then has no control over. So, yes, being able to communicate that, I think, can save marriages when you're
Mhm.
able to say, why is this making such a
Right.
big impact to me? Because it probably has nothing to do with the actual situation you're in, but what it's triggering inside of you. Working through that continuously can
And
really help.
I love that you recognize because a lot of times I have a loved one that if you say a specific word or you do a certain thing, they just go off the rail and you're like, what is wrong with you? But what I realized is, oh my gosh, this is a trigger. And I don't think that that person even realizes it. And so it's like, okay, you're triggered. And then they get mad because I say that they're triggered. So I think that it is so true that for you to be able to communicate that, and a lot of times people are afraid to. And I think that's the thing is what I'm trying to do in the first book is open up the channel of communication. Let's talk about these things. Let's have these conversations because I wish that I would have with that first marriage. I would never have married him, honestly. But I'm glad I did because I have 4 kids that are beautiful and I
Yeah.
love them. But, I knew it was a mistake at the altar. I knew it because of the voice. It's in the book, the story. But I
Mm.
think that the communication then is hard, and if you have 2 people like you, I think that it's wonderful that if 2 people are willing to make it, no matter how hard things are, you can get through it, and so with the second book, it does go in phases from the newlywed to the nearly deads. Sorry,
I
but
love the you're like a little analogies throughout. It's awesome.
yeah, but the number 1 age group getting divorced in America right now is 65 and older. And it's because, in my opinion, there's, like 2 to 3 reasons. But one of them is, "Oh, we've raised all our kids. I never liked you.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to be with you." Or, "We've grown apart, and I don't really wanna grow together." And so, if you can continue to like, you're gonna go like this, because your interests are gonna be different than theirs. You couldn't see that, right?
The zigzagging back
Yeah.
and forth on the journey.
But as long as we keep on that path and we keep coming back to it, it's
Yeah.
okay. And when I'm not saying a wandering eye and stuff, but what I'm saying is your hobbies, your interests, they don't have to completely be the same, but being able to come back to each other and say, "Hey, I'm still here and I love you and I want to be with you." And I just feel like a lot of couples, that's not there. There's so much selfishness now.
Yeah, so
Okay.
true. I'm excited for your new book. One thing that I would happily be able to share with the audience that I'm working on with my husband is the Paired app. I don't know if you've seen it, the Paired app, and it has everything from communication to your story together to what your future is to sexual things, like everything across the board for relationships. And then every day on the free version, you get one question, quiz, or game that you can do together. And in the premium version, which I think is like $40 a year, right? So
Mhm.
it's like pretty inexpensive. You can do 3 that are like, here's today's ones, and then you can do any more that you want from their collection. What I'm loving about it is I'm able to understand like there was one that's like, "What was your favorite date that you guys had together?" And then his response versus my response, and so you can't unlock what the other person's response is until you respond,
I love
and so
that.
it's just a lot of fun just kind of almost getting to know him deeper, and I wanted to do something like this because, 1, I kept getting ads for it, but also, I am someone that likes to have one-on-one, face-to-face
Yeah.
conversations to talk
Mhm.
about our feelings. My husband does not like to do that. Like, he's like, "And moving on." Whereas he will text me all day long, all his thoughts, all his feelings, and all his emotions. And so I wanted to find something where we could both come together. He could get what he needs to be able to share things with me, and then I could get the things that I want, which is like, I want him to share with me. And
That's
so
cool.
having something that we could both do that is like sends you little reminders, "Hey, make sure you do this today," has been a ton of fun. And I lose a lot of the games, but that's okay.
You know what? That's cool though, that because you found something on his level and his needs where you like to communicate, but he likes to text. And so you found something that works for him that you're willing to do. And see that
Yeah.
shows that you're willing to work on things on his terms, right? That's cool.
Yes. So, when can we expect the next book?
I know. I need to breathe.
Yes.
Oh, it's yeah. My outline's done. It's gonna be probably a year. Let
It's
me be
okay.
realistic, right?
Yes, so 2026,
Mhm.
we're gonna be on the lookout for your book. Charisse, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you and for sharing these great tips from your book as well. I love all of your analogies. They are delicious. So, where can people listen to your show, buy your book, get to know you, all that fun stuff?
No, I appreciate you asking that. So Charisse Walker, it's kind of a catch-all, and it's currently under construction because I'm changing it. But that's where you can find the podcast. That's where you can find my book. That's where you can learn about real estate if you wanted to. And also the TV show that's coming up. I'm super excited. I think we film in July. So it'll be out in August, the very first one. So it's Flipping the Iceberg is the name of it. So you can go to flippingtheiceberg.com, or it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all of that. Apple. I didn't even know it was on Apple somehow, but it is. And then unbreakablemompreneurs.com is the website you can go to and find the podcast. So there you go.
Awesome. And we'll make sure that we have links for all of that in the show notes for anyone who's doing other things and is like,
Yeah.
wait, what was those? We got you. They're in the show notes or the YouTube description, wherever you're watching. Charisse, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.